All right, well, let I don't think Don's gonna join us. We're all here. Let's get rolling here at 8:58.
Let her rip.
So let's call the meeting to order. I don't see anybody from the public, so there are no public comments. So everybody has seen the minutes previously distributed from our July 25th meeting. Does anybody have any edits or changes to those minutes as originally distributed?
No, sir.
No, I do not.
Okay, with no changes, those minutes are accepted as previously submitted. The first item on the agenda is going to be a discussion on reserves. And it's more or less, I guess, kind of maybe where we're going from here, unless Steve has been able to put together a preliminary forecast, probably not at this point in time. John and I had spoken about reserves, and John had also referenced reserves and reserves work to be done in the last annual meeting. I guess, along with the legislation that Maryland has passed, the question is, what does Ocean Pines need to do or not need to do with respect to following those guidelines? John and Steve, I guess in particular, is going to be looking closely at that and come up with recommendations as to what we may or may not need to do in that regard. Along those lines, Steve was planning on doing a kind of a reforecast. There's going to be some involvement with DMA to make sure we're on the same page with them as we go forward, because according to the guidelines, basically they have a lot of input in this process based on the new law. So with that, John and or Steve, I'll let you just talk through, where we're at and where we're heading in that regard.
Okay, Dick, thank you very much. Yes, and this is very important, and it's, I'm glad it's at the forefront of today's meeting. We definitely need to discuss it. I did talk to Dick at length last week. I'm going to go through with everybody where we're at today and what I see us doing over the next.
John, can I hold you up for a second? Hey,
Sure.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
Could you take minutes today, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and Steve, if somebody doesn't have a copy of the legislation, it's not very big, but Steve will send it to you. But it basically says that a homeowner, and Steve, you can jump if you want, but a homeowners association has to have a reserve study, has to have an outside independent study, a review from an outside firm. It has to be done within 5 years. So, Steve, you want to add anything else to that? There's no regs or anything, but anything that I missed there?
No, it's totally accurate what you said. Yep.
Good. So then what is that? Whoops, sorry, I got a new laptop here. Did I lose everybody?
No.
No.
Good. Okay. So where are we now? What does this mean? Because this, if anything, I'm getting questions on info at Ocean Pines. Linda is, and everybody info at Ocean Pines. This infamous, I want a reserve study report and I want it now. So let me all make sure we all understand what a reserve study report is. This is it. I believe it was updated in 2020. This says 2021. 2021, it was updated. BNF was at the forefront with this, along with Steve and myself. We brought in Doug, DMA. Right, we went through it. He went through the balances. He updated anything changes that we make, and we're in the process now at this time of the year to update what we have in there, because obviously we don't update this major binder on a daily basis. Once we close out the year, we update it. So we update, if we have to take some trucks off there or add trucks, or if we had something new that we did, that's going to all be happening now. And then the way it works is we don't have the software for this. We outsourced it to DMA. We send all the changes to them, and then they update it. So that's standard. We do that every year. And the reason I'm telling you this is because this is part of the process with this HOA legislation. So the legislation says you have to have an outside independent study. Well, check the box for Ocean Pines because we have that. The first one we did, and I don't know if Josh is on this, I see him. Josh went back and checked the videos and everything on it, and we closed out, or JB and Budget and Finance, and some of you were on that with me, and I know Steve was just started, but we closed out the original DMA study in 2018. So if you add 5 years, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, we actually are still good with the 5 years. But in addition to that, if I take what we did last year in 2021, we're really checking the box for doing a reserve study independent within 5 years, all right? So you all with me? Just raise your hand and stop me, because just a couple of points I got to make. All right, so we checked the box on that. So then I'm getting people from the media, I'm getting other people reaching out and saying, hey, you need 60%. Okay, well, I don't know where that's coming from, because Steve and I read the legislation and there's no regs, and it certainly doesn't say that. But I guess, there's people out there saying that or whatever, and I'm not talking about Ocean Pines. Well, nowhere does it say that. So where are we? So back in the 2018, actually came out of BNF, because I'm the one that came out of my mouth. How about a range 22 to 28, which is kind of where we were back then. Originally, in that first of the 3-day meetings, Doug did say something like 60%. I remember that. And apparently there's newspaper articles, because a couple of the papers ran with that, and that's fine. But that was day one. And people are going back and pulling those articles. And I'm like, well, that's not where we ended up. We ended up in Josh went back. Dick and I had a conversation last week without me telling him what I was telling my team, and Dick's recollection was exactly the same as mine. We said, to be good, we got to be in that 22 to 28% range for general replacement, and we were. When Doug came in last year, and I'll talk about roads separately, Dick, or Tom, I know you had a big thing on the roads. The general replacement, it was the same thing, 22 to 28%, and that's how we left it. And basically it was, and then the board went with the recommendation BNF and I made and Steve made, and everything's good. And Steve does a forecast, which I heard somebody mention, and we don't do that, we don't do that virtual every day, but we've constantly been in the 22 to 28%. And Steve will talk more about that. And Steve does 5-10 years for me. So let's go 5 years ahead. And we do that forecast, and everybody has this, by the way. And I put it out on the website. Steve or somebody put it out there, I didn't, but I said to put it out there. But we are consistently, over the next 5 years, within that 22 to 28, if not a 26. Steve takes the assumptions, the inflation factors that are in DMA, which we're going to have to go back and look at. We know that. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. He then takes what we've been funding. Steve's right when what we call depreciation, right? Everybody seems to know when we say that what we mean. But Steve's right when he says, hey, John, it's really a contribution. It's a contribution to the reserves. It's pretty much almost based on the depreciation. But we pretty much were contributing $2 million. Now, the board did take 10% of that and allocate it to new capital. I think they approved that every year. And look, from the beginning, I didn't agree with that, but we towed a line and we go forward with it. But even with that, I said to Steve, go forward with, and I think he's going to talk to you about the schedule, but use the 2 million assumption over the next 5 years. So kind of in the DMA, use the inflation factor from DMA and take from DMA how much we believe from DMA we have to replace each year. Now, when we do the budget, obviously there could be differences. But all that said and done, Steve had it. He'll go through this with you if you want to see the numbers and everything. But Steve, if you just, at this point, just give me a highlight where we fall for the next 5 years.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now, John, and so based on the latest forecast, we have 26.8% for this fiscal year, and then it goes to 27.3, 26.7, 28, and then up to 29.4 by FY 26-27. So that's a 5-year outlook that I have right now.
So Steve, when will be the next time you update that? Like, I know we closed out the year. I know there's some transfers I'm going to recommend to the board with BNF.
Yeah.
When would be the next time you would update that?
So if there's any major deviations to the actual estimated spending for this fiscal year, I usually make that monthly, and it'll move the needle maybe slightly. Around budget time, we'll look at some of the out years and some of the upcoming replacements, which will change the estimated spending in those years. So probably here in September, once we start talking to the directors with, the budget process, is probably a good time to go ahead and revamp that. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So at this point, we'll talk more about this. So I'm trying to show you all where we are today with this new homeowners association legislation. So we're there. We're strong on our range. But then people say, well, hey, John, it's not up to you. It's not up to Steve. It's not up to BNF. It's up to the outside independent. So I'm going to talk about that next. But anybody questions where we are today? And believe me, we're ahead of the curve. Because we've done everything that the homeowners association the legislation saying for homeowners associations. With that said, Steve's going to give you his take on what he believes this legislation is really for. It does encompass us. But Steve, what were you telling me the other day that you believe? And what is the homeowners association size and stuff? Tell them a little bit about what you feel, because I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of focus on this based on a lot of the events nationally. The one condo that collapsed down in Florida. Obviously, the legislation here got enacted now for all of Maryland. It was previously in effect, I think, for segments, which was Montgomery counties. Some of the larger areas within Maryland. So, I think it was geared towards probably some of the smaller homeowners associations. When we talked with Doug Green the other day, he kept emphasizing
Let
how
me get
big.
into that separately. Let me do that separately.
Okay, sorry. So generally speaking, I think we're much bigger than a lot of these other HOAs that it was geared towards. I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And, I truly agree with everything Steve said. It's really good perspective for all of you. All right. So I told you where we were. I explained where we are today. Any questions before I get to where we're going to go, especially over the next couple of months to address this? Is everybody good, or any questions for Steve or me or anything?
I have a question, John. So in the legislation, I haven't read it, but you're saying there's no set amount percentage wise for hose that they must maintain?
That's correct. As of now, what be a tax background or whatever, there's no regulations, there's nothing on it. It's basically a paragraph. If Steve can send it to you, otherwise afterwards he will.
Okay.
But it's basically what I said, that's where it is. The key is the outside independent. But we're doing all that. We've
Right.
done all that. Steve?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was Steve asking me a question. Okay,
Yeah.
so that answered that, Brian. Good
Okay,
question.
yes,
Anything
thanks.
else?
Yeah, just a follow-up question. John, you showed that on the annual meeting, you showed the report where they had showed the 26% where we're sitting. I don't believe that's on the website. Is it, Steve?
Better be. I said it even, well, it was supposed to be, well, let me tell you, after this meeting, it will. I gave that instruction. I even said it at the board meeting. It's supposed to be out there.
Okay, all right. So
But that is, Linda's following up as we speak. That is something that we have given out. Everybody has it. We haven't changed it. We're going to work on it now, but we'll send it out. Steve's going to go through it with you, and he'll send you all a copy. Linda's working on it right now because I gave him task to put it out there.
So it might be part of the budget package for the last one we did probably a few months ago. I'd have to check and see if it's part of that 100-page document. If we want it front and center, we'll just have to work with marketing to get us, I guess, a new section in the website for that, and we'll drop it in.
But believe me, you all at Budget and Finance, everybody has it from when we did light. But look, I get it. I get stuff and I don't save this stuff. So, but we will, and Steve's going to talk about that when I'm done with this and take you through it and what we're going to do as far as updating it. Okay, so any other questions? Because these are all good. Okay, so I showed you when we talked, somebody says, hey, I want a report, because I did get, it's in the papers and everything. Here's the report. You want a reserve study, you want a report, and you ask me for a report. Here it is. Now, we will put it at the front desk. We've done this before for people to look at. Obviously, we can't be sending this thing out. We've made copies. If anybody on that team doesn't have it, let us know after the meeting. We'll reach out to Linda and Steve, and we'll get you copies, because we are going to be working on this regardless of this HOA. This is part of the process we started in September as we update and prepare for the budget process. And as I mentioned, we have an agreement with Doug. If we have any major changes to it, they have the proprietary software. They do it. We outsource that piece, and we pay a little bit of money for it. But we're definitely going to be doing that this year. As I tell you, the steps that I'm going to take, we're going to take, what you recommend to me from BNF, and how I see this thing right now. You guys good? And
Yep.
then I will talk about roads because I know you guys had a lot of questions and I have answers on that. All right, so where are we gonna go? So put a little levity in it. Steve and I last week went to the Mountain of Reserves and we looked into all this and we came back with some knowledge. So I called Doug Green. Steve was on it with me. And apparently, and I knew this before, people from the association are reaching out to him. He's not going to answer when people randomly are calling him, and nor should he. Well, if anybody has any questions, it should go through info@oceanpines.org, should go through budget and finance, and certainly some combination of people on this screen should be reaching out with all those questions. And I'm going to entertain all those questions, and we'll do meetings on this thing or whatever. And this thing's going to be videotaped, so I'm sure we'll have more on it. So I spoke to Doug and I said, look, I know too from their end, this is new for them too, and they're probably trying to come up with what they're going to do and how they're going to approach this. He told me, and Steve, correct me wherever if I mistranslated or whatever. He said that we basically, my words, I don't think he said it, we're ahead of the curve. We've done all this. He knew that we did it in 2018. He said, you're within the 5 years. He said, and especially what you just did last year. He said that, make your changes, go through and, if an asset's not on there anymore or whatever, or any changes in there. And then he'll run the report and then we'll have a meeting with him. First I'll go through everything with budget and finance. Obviously the inflation factor has to change. I asked him, what do you recommend? What are you doing? Can you just give me a heads up before we even start so that I can do, our own little schedule so I know where we're at and I can, update everybody. And Steve, why don't you jump in? And he did give us kind of an approach, and Steve has the information. Tell everybody how we're going to approach this inflation factor per DMA.
Yeah, so Doug indicated that more recently, I guess they've had more like of a variable inflation factor model. So, obviously, given the current marketplace, it's put more inflation percentage in the short term here in the next few years, and then kind of leveled it off in succeeding years. So John, was trying to get a number for us, and he said that probably in the range we applied 3.08% in the current one. He said it was probably more in the range of 4% for the next 5 years.
Right. So, and that's important because obviously going from 3 to 4, that's going to have an effect on what we need, right? So we can do it at a high level. Steve and I will do that, and we'll be Steve doing the calculations, and we'll look at where we're at before we even send all the stuff to him, because obviously that's going to have an effect. So we will, we'll quantify that for everybody, manually. Okay. So then, wait, one more thing before I forget. So then I said to him, I'm being asked, people in the media and saying to me, you tell me what percentage. I said, you're going to tell me 60%. He says, I'm not, and Steve, I need you to jump in on this to make sure I translate it right. He says, I'm not going to tell your association that you need to be at 60%. He says, you pretty much have guidelines that you all have been following. You pretty much are there. It's going to be, more or less like the way we approached it, that we're saying, here we are, here's our forecast for the next 5 years. This is where we see ourselves. This is where we want to be. We believe we're going to meet everything, and we don't have any major items or anything. And Steve, why don't you give them the way you translated what he said to make sure that I'm right?
Yeah, I mean, he basically said it's, an internal practice that varies, and there's nothing that he uses a cash funding over a period of time, model, and that model shows like you said, the contribution, as I call it, so that's what he's putting together for us. He's not going to say that, as long as you're reaching what you have in that model as expenditures each year, and that's what this forecast is showing us, we're probably in pretty good shape.
Thanks, Steve. That's just the way I heard it. Okay, so questions there before I do a couple other points on this and what I see and what we're going to do mechanically. Any questions on that? Because that's big right there, because you're going to hear it. And people are pulling out articles from 4 years ago. Like I said, that he said 60% in that first meeting, but he was just throwing stuff out there, what they're reading online, 60% or whatever. We've already had some, you know, I don't know, whatever, but what's your take on that so far on the general replacement?
Well, I do recall in the meeting, he did, when we spoke in the meeting, when he was present, he basically said, yeah, the 20% rate range was reasonable in his opinion, which we were doing. BNF has had some preliminary conversations, and basically we haven't really bounced it around. We're kind of waiting to tackle it, but there may be some desire there to take a look at that percentage and maybe tweak it some. We haven't had those discussions. Don't know the right time to do that based on the information being presented, but at some point in time, probably that's a discussion we should have.
Okay, look, and right, and that's excellent, but that's why I'm doing this now, or Steve and I are doing this with you. I would hope now, you know, whenever you decide to do it, it's over the next couple of months as we work on it and we present to you where we're at and everything, because we'll start the budget process. So I would hope it's over the next couple of months. We're going to certainly start right after Labor Day. Actually, I'm going to be working on the roads. I think this afternoon I'm going to start with Eddie. Okay, so yeah.
John, can I add something?
Absolutely.
We talk about the inflation rate going 3 to 4% in the report.
Right.
People are this is something I think we need to be prepared to answer. People are going to look at the inflation rate of 7, 8, 9%, and they're going to say, well, why is it only 4% when you're doing this calculation here, or DMA's doing it? So, you know, it may be something we need to look at as far as, you know, what's the answer if it's 4% versus people reading in the paper it's 8%.
Right. So
I just throw it out there.
Yeah, excellent question. Here's what we heard. I'm going to ask Steve to jump in again. It was pretty much like an average over the next 5-10 years. It wasn't right at the specific time right now. And they'll give us something on it. When he comes in, he will give us a write-up on it. I just got that because I wanted to start doing the numbers myself with Steve so that I know where, you know, show you gentlemen, ladies, and everybody else. But he'll give us their whole reasons for that. He gave it some terms or whatever. So you got to look at a longer picture as opposed to right now.
Right.
Steve, you want to add anything to that? Because that is an excellent question George has.
No. And I mean, we could use more of a variable tiered approach too in this forecast and put a little bit higher for this fiscal year or next fiscal year for the inflation factor and bring it down till it averages out. But, you know, 1%, you know, ends up being about, just looking at it, roughly, you know, $17,000. So, you know, it's not going to make or break us here in the total balance, but we can certainly look at the inflation number that he comes in with.
Excellent.
Well, as I say, I'm sure the public's going to have some questions on that.
You're right.
When they hear 4%, so we have to be prepared to answer.
No, George, I totally agree. We'll get more from Doug, but again, this is for BNF, certainly a number that you know, and if you're recommending something else and based upon the background, obviously we'll consider it and, you know, we'll work it up. But I mean, Steve just quantified it for you, which really, you know, it sounds, 3 to 4% is big, but you know, when you're talking about $17,000, $20,000 on something that's not a, you know, it's not a perfect science, but it's the best tool. It's certainly one of the best tools we have. But you're right. We'll definitely look at that. Now we'll get all his support for whatever the number is when he comes in. Like Steve said, I just pulled that out of him for now, so I can work on this stuff with Steve.
Hey,
And
John.
BNF, yeah.
This is Tom.
Tom,
That capital reserve study and financial analysis book that you held up, let the PDF that and sent it to BNF. I have it right in front of me. It's 471 pages. And it gave us the ability to actually go in and find something if we wanted to. And it's actually dated September 23rd, 2021.
right, and that's, I have a hard copy, you're right.
Yes.
He also, and I believe it's also, I was told, it's on the website, correct?
Yeah.
And what we'll do is what I did the other time, because now I got people reaching out because some of that stuff was in the papers. We'll put a binder out so they can come in if they want to look at a hard copy, because we're not going to be making hundreds of copies. I think they have to pay for it. I don't know how much it is for it, but we'll put a copy out there for them to look at, or that PDF, like you said, which I believe is on the website. But you're right. But, you know, when somebody says to me, you know, reserve report, that's the report. The other reserve is the balances that Steve puts out in the controller's report, which is a schedule per our scrolls that we have to put out there. So there it is. The other thing is the analysis. It's, unless we want to make this a formalized report, analysis that I used as a tool that I designed when I was on BNF, and then Gene did it, and now Steve's doing it. And I guess the best tool, one of the best analysis to put it all together. But that's been out there, and I've updated everybody. So I'll make sure all that's on the website. And then, again, if anybody on BNF needs a hard copy of this, we'll work with you on that. It's important. Or Doug, I don't know if you had, I think you've been there before, so you probably have it, but if the new CFO, if there is a new one, we'll get it to them.
Hey, Don, just a quick question for you. This is Don.
Yeah, Don.
You seem pretty fired up with this, and why are people jumping all over this thing? Is there a reason that people, or is there not just a few people or a lot of people, or why is it such a big item if you have all the information?
Yeah, so Don, again, excellent question. I can only guess. Something new that was out there. If we do go to 60%, and Steve, I'll ask you to just check my math. I was just doing it when I was sitting. If we go to 60%, that's probably a $700 hit, a one-time hit to the assessment. Now, obviously, I would hope we decide to do that over time. So that's a big number. The person that has reached out to me from the media, they were concerned because they had read an article in the paper from 5 years ago that says 60%. And I said to that person, that was day one. You got to look at the next article or look at the video. And I don't know if Josh has all the video from the 2021 meeting. I don't know if he has everything from the 2018, but we checked it. So that's one person. That person read stuff on the internet claiming other places were saying it has to be 60%. Now, we did have a request that was infamous, give me the reserve report, give it to me. I don't know what that means. And, you got a question on it. I'd like to know what the question is. So we can work on it and give you the information. But, when you say to me, give me a report. So I think that got everybody, that's all over the papers. And I guess that thing took a life of its own in different meetings than info on this. So I don't know. And I think that's why people then were reaching out, asking, because they read it in the papers about this report, which is there. I agree with you. We have it all. We're going to update it. And we're going to make sure we're in compliance, which we already are. And, if BNF recommends to go higher or the board wants to go higher, we'll go higher. Or, we'll quantify it, Steve and myself, we'll give our take on it, and we'll go from there. But that analysis that we do, which we're updating as we speak, to me is an important analysis to have for the decision. But right now, you don't even need to look at the analysis. We're within the 22 to 28, a strong 26 over the next 5 years. Now, keep in mind, too, that's a function also if we have favorability, which I can't predict. But certainly with the favorability that we just realized, we'll talk about transfers with the board, which I will come to BNF again, hopefully in September, like we did last year. I've been giving everybody a heads up on it. Steve and I'll prepare a schedule and all that. And then after the recommendations of all the transfers like we did last year, we'll still have some remaining money in this schedule for retained earnings, which the board of BNF, you can recommend, hey, maybe move some of that to the reserves. You all follow that? So I think we got a couple places there, at least over the next couple of years, that we're good. That's the best I can do to answer that question, Don. Again, excellent question. I mean, that's my take on it. All right.
All right.
Very good. All right. So let me just see where I'm at. All right. So we're going to update it. We'll go through it right now. My department heads right after Labor Day will start going through all the schedules to make sure, even our fixed asset schedule that Steve maintains, that the outside auditors do the report for us. We'll make sure that's all up to date. Like, for instance, the new car, the new police cruisers we got, or make sure that the other 5 that I eliminated are off the schedules. And I was told that they are, because I know Doug asked that question, and he's right to ask that. So I got to prove all that stuff out along with everything else. So we're going to work on that. We'll do some stuff manually, just at a high level with the 4% to see where we're at. Steve will plug them all into his schedule there, that analysis. We'll present that hopefully within the next 2 BNF meetings, one or the other. And then we'll go from there. Doug is, they're not ready to come in, I am going to recommend, or if BNF recommends to me about bringing Doug in, I think it would be a good idea. Along with him updating all the schedules, it'll be on a hybrid. I don't think it'll cost a lot of money. And then we go from there, we debate, we discuss the percentages. We show our analysis. You know, in there, one of the biggest things we got coming due is the irrigation system over the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's one of the bigger ones. So we will do that. We'll look to see if there's anything that we need to do that is not in the next 5 years, or something that's in the 5 years. And I'm not talking about irrigation now, that maybe we can move. We did that last year, and that helped a lot. So we'll be doing that. Okay, and that's kind of the forecast. Steve will update this now, the forecast for this year, what we believe we're going to spend for the rest of the year. He'll update that reserve schedule. We'll have that as part of the board presentation. Either I'll do it, Steve will do it, or we'll give it to the CFO to do. But he'll take the reserve, that schedule that's in here, right? And then Steve adjusts it for all the forecasted capital spend, the drainage spend, road spend we're going to do for the rest of the year, along with the recommended transfers. So that's coming probably with, probably with the September. All righty, any questions? Got a couple more things on this, and then I want to talk about roads. I noticed this BNF team has asked about roads, and the questions are spot on, but I believe I have the answers.
One last question, John,
Yeah.
Steve, on the inflation rate. Is DMA, they're acknowledging that, a variable inflation factor might be appropriate, but they're still recommending to stick with the 4%, an average for all the years? Or could we have separate inflation factor year by year based on what inflation is?
Steve, you got it? You want me to do? You do it first.
You go ahead.
So, and Brian, look, it's a question we have to answer. If I can predict the inflation over the next 5 years, I'm going to make a lot of money. What he's saying is that's the average that they believe, based upon history, based upon what they're seeing. Could we do different rates? Well, if you want to do that, and I would bring that question up when Doug's in. Me, I would leave the 4% unless we fall, well, whatever number he tells us.
Yeah.
But if you want to make an adjustment and BNF feels strongly like saying, hey, look, maybe it gets to 4, John, but for the next 2 years, you should put 5 or something. We can talk about it. It's not a big adjustment, as Steve pointed out, and we'll do that. But that's the kind of stuff we should be talking about. And you're right, we're going to get those questions.
Okay.
To me,
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be
it's an
something.
average. I mean, it's not a perfect, it's about as perfect as you can get. Remember, we're taking assumptions and we're forecasting.
Yep.
But, if you want to, Dick and your team wants to recommend something else, we'll look at it.
Well, I was just thinking that to address George's question about what the members are going to ask, and
No, you're right. You're right. We're going to get.
Why not say, well, we're going to do a higher percentage this year because we know inflation is high, but we're looking at an average over the 5 years, and we may bring that percentage down in the coming years. So that's
fine. Yeah, you're right. George, we're going to get that question.
The question is, do we want to smooth it out, or do we want to do fluctuations?
Okay, so George, I was just going to go to exactly, because I was going to say, but then, if I got this big, little spike, which I don't think we'll have, and then the other one, I would recommend we smooth that out and not go. But George, go ahead, continue, because you're right on.
No, that's what, you smooth it out. What's the effect on the assessments versus if you go up and down with what we think will be inflation? That's the question we have to answer, as a committee, and as you and the board, I guess, how we want to handle that.
Exactly.
But sometimes, my business experience, we've always kind of smoothed it out to make it more palatable and work better with finance.
I belong to that school that you just said. I agree with you.
And for planning purposes, a level factor is probably better as well.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I've got to believe that DMA has the right kind of tools and the right kind of input, and they're looking at the right kind of things, because that's the kind of business that they're in, to basically come up. If they're recommending 4%, they have something to base that on, and I think, I suspect it's pretty credible.
You're right.
It's good to hear more about how they do that, but I suspect it's pretty credible what they're doing. Yeah. John, you mentioned bringing in DMA for kind of another meeting review session.
Yep.
Not a comprehensive one, but just to kind of understand, so we're all on the same page with the Maryland law. And as I read through the it's not a whole lot of words associated with it, but as I read through it, your consultant has a big say in suggesting what you should do. I like the fact that DMA is not coming out and saying you should be at X. They're looking for you to make a recommendation. Now, if your recommendation is kind of crazy, I suspect they would step in and say, listen, that's out of the norm. So the way I see this thing unfolding would be that Ocean Ponds and DMA would kind of come to an understanding and acceptance as to what we all agree on. And once that consensus is there, then I suspect we've met the requirements of the Maryland legislation.
Yeah, and again, from that high level discussion with him, I believe I know where we're going to be and everything. There won't be any surprises. Now, look, if something unfolds over the next month or two before he comes in, or 3, obviously we'll talk about that. But right now, I see it going that way, and I see our numbers going that way. Yeah, and I'm glad that's got to be highlighted too, because I'm hearing that too, that they dictate, they being the outside firm. And you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that from the media, and I've heard that. But you summarized it perfectly, Dick. He answered that. So yeah, good.
Yeah, there are some HOAs that want to be at 100%, well, albeit. But the way I look at reserves is, if you look out over a period of time, do you have enough money to meet your obligations?
Right.
And that's the key part of it.
Right, and with Steve, and I don't want to talk for Steve, what Steve was saying, when you got a smaller HOA, a small one, obviously you probably need more money, because if something happens, you got no other backup. Doug, you raising your hand because so and Steve, you talk more about that because you put it into words well. We got enough to cover it. Look, you never know. But Steve, what were you saying about a small one? And by the way, Dick, Doug did mention to me, hey, John, a lot of these homeowners associations are, I said, yeah, they got nothing. And I believe I heard they're negative. And I saw that with co-ops when friends of mine bought co-ops in New York. And then they'd ask me to look at the financials and stuff. And I'd say to them, do you realize if something goes wrong in your hallways or roof or something, it's a separate assessment, because there's no money in those accounts. So Steve, do you want to add anything on smaller companies and why it's more for them? What your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that, based on the size of our fixed assets, I mean, that's the majority of our equity on the balance sheet. We got $50 million in gross assets, fixed assets, that is. That basically, 28% is a big number, and you're not going to hit that in any given couple years. You're not going to be able to spend that much from a construction replacement standpoint, but these smaller homeowners associations that I'm making the assumption that it's geared towards, you might have a couple $1 million in fixed assets. 60% of that, was still well below us. So just comparison purposes, us being larger, $6 million balance, is sizable in my opinion. So.
Yeah, well said, Steve, on the smaller ones. And remember, we're and I know there's a bigger homeowners association, but okay, good. All right, if everybody's good on this, I do want to talk about roads. I want to address the questions that I know BNF has had. I believe I got the answers to them. You guys good with general replacement? Dick?
Yeah.
Doug, you good? Doug? Okay. All right, so let's talk about roads, right? So roads, general replacement, in the past, that was basically the only thing, even before us, general replacement. But now we have roads. And the takeaway I got from the 2021 meeting that you all were at, I was at, Steve, Linda, Doug Green, whatever, was you all told me, hey, we want more money. And you said it even before that meeting. We want to see more money in reserves, right? And obviously the board, they have the final say. And the number I heard, again, you guys, when I'm done, correct me if I'm wrong, you all said to me, hey, John, Steve, we want to get it up to $1 million. And I said, do we got to do it right away? No, over time. So we said, look, at the time, we believed we were going to have favorability. It wasn't realized. We did realize it. And same thing this year. We just realized it. So I'm going to go forward and ask for the second 300,000 or 350 to go forward into the roads reserve. So Steve, tell me I'm right or whatever. Yeah, Steve does the forecast and what we're going to transfer expected, and what we are in the process of getting bids for the roads, which I believe I'll get next week. Hopefully it's still in that $100,000 a mile range. but if it is that, let's do that for today's meeting. And I do the 3 miles, which we've been doing. That's $300,000. At the end, assume I finish that at the end of September, and we do this transfer that I'm recommending to the board and to BNF of 3 or 350. Steve, I'll have 700,000 in the roads reserve at the end of for this year forecasted. Is that correct?
Correct. So just looking at the schedule that's in the controller's packet, we transferred from the surplus 350. We basically started with pretty much a zero balance, 350 from the surplus, 350 from the casino funds, gets us at 700. If we put another 350 in, that gets us at $1 million, less what we spend, what you just said. So yes, 700,000.
And that's only in the second year. So I believe that we're meeting everything BNF recommended. And Doug did say at the end of that meeting, right? He said, I'd like to see $1 million in the roads. So we're getting there. We're almost there. So that's big. But there's a second part to this. And I know when Dick talked to me last Monday, he brought it up, and probably George or Tom or all the rest of you, you're like, hey, when we look in the roads binder, the numbers are bigger. Big numbers, more than the 350 that you need each year. And you're right. And what we should have done last year, and it's not a big deal because we kind of were doing it, but we were doing it manually, Steve, myself, and is we need to go back and look at the road section, which I will be working on this afternoon with Eddie. Steve will people will get involved. I brought that up to Doug Green, and it just shows you how in tune he is with us. If you go back and think about it, back in 2017-18, when we worked on this, we hadn't done roads. Everybody had an opinion how much it would be to replace, from somewhere around 63,000 by Tom Staus to $2.5 million by, it doesn't matter who said it, it's somebody that was on the team. And then a couple averages of 250. Now I know where everybody got the numbers from. I know the 2.5 million, if you're doing sub-base and you're doing roads in Pennsylvania or you're doing them in New York, it probably is 2 million. Certainly up there in whatever that county is, Tom, that we came from. My dad used to tell me it was $1 million a mile. But we've proven, and I think we've done 9 miles now, and it's come out to 100,000. I will know better next week when I get the bids if it's still in that range. So I got to go back. Doug's telling me that we put in a bigger number. They probably put in a number that somebody said back in 2018. He also said, and it again shows you how, in tune he is with us. And Eddie's coming over later, and we're going to look at it. We do an evaluation of our roads. Eddie Clint does it. He's been doing it, and our roads are rated even better than what we have on a yearly basis that has to be done in the DMA study. Doug knew it. Doug knows about that evaluation because Eddie, his team went through it with him whatever it was last year or a year and a half ago when he was in. So we're going through that. We're working on that now, and we're going to update that road section where I believe you're going to see more leveling out to everything else that we've been doing manually and giving you in the updates. So we're working on that. As soon as we get that done, I hope to give that to BNF before the whole picture, so you guys can start looking at that. Any questions on that? That's a big one.
That's good, John. That'd be good to give it to us as soon as you've revamped it and revised it. And we'd love to take a look at that.
Yep. So, like I said, Eddie, he told me this morning he was available this afternoon. So we are going to work on this thing. Because the roads, I want to get that into perspective, because I do believe, as you said, or George said, this thing is going to be out there and people are going to be asking us questions. They're going to be asking the board. And it's fine. I think we have all the answers. But we also say that we're doing our due diligence, which we are, and we're working through it.
So, John, when we do our 3 miles each year, which we've been doing here lately, do we basically cut into those roads and go down to the base to take a look at the base of the roads that we've just topped off?
Excellent question. So and I said this when we were in BNF, and we've said this each year, is that I get a report from the company that does it. And obviously, if they see it, they're going to tell us that, hey, look, you need to do the sub-base. And we've used 2 different companies. They've all told us the sub-base is fine with the 9 miles we've done. Obviously, I'll be doing another 3, so we'll have even more history. Right now, everybody's telling me from the history that we have so far, that the sub-base is fine. Let me add something to that. And these roads go way back, right? They go way back. When we did the clubhouse, we brought in an outside engineering firm, and Steve Tuttle worked with them because he's an engineer. They tested our sub-base. The sub-base was excellent. That foundation, I was there with the contractors, everything. That foundation is excellent. We're doing some work. We're trying to get estimates and trying to get an idea on the building down at the Racket Center. Just high, level ideas, possibly down the road. And Frank Brown and Eddie did some research, same type of base as, back in the 70s or whatever it was, as the clubhouse, solid. So I believe the sub bases are fine. I believe the history that we'll have proves it. What I would do, and I think you brought it up, and if BNF recommends it, we can bring in that engineer, the same one, I forget the name, and have them test. I don't think it's necessary, but if we need, we can do that. But that's what I'm going by. I'm going by the history, and it's certainly the history that I'm going to find out over the next month. So
John?
no, I think what's in there now, because the number's so high, Doug wasn't sure. He said it was just basically what they believed it was per mile. So I'm going to say it probably was.
John, do they mill the road or do they just overlay it? From what
No, you're right. You're right. They mill it. They
do mill it. Okay.
Yep. And that's
Well, that-
to me is the right way.
Yeah, that should give you a good idea what the base.
Yeah,
is.
because and I've gone, and Eddie, I'll bring Eddie into one of these, but I've gone when they did it to look, and they told me, I wasn't sampling the sub base, but you could see it. But yes, they mill it, they test, they can see the sub base, they know they're in the business. So yes, we were able to clear view of the sub base. Yep.
Is by any chance Ocean Parkway have a better base than other roads, or?
So I would, I don't know. We'll see if we can find out something on that. But the side roads that we've been doing are darn good.
Yeah, I guess.
Exceptionally good. So, but we'll check. I don't know if they have something down in Public Works, something diagramming or telling us exactly that. We'll check.
Well, there are repairs that are done every year where you cut pretty deep to do some repairs, so you should get a good look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right with that. But when you talk about those cuts, and that's those cuts come in on the evaluation. The cuts in the long run, not the best for the roads. But you're right, and wherever I see they're doing that, I'll ask Eddie or Clint to see if they can get some type of feel for it. But I got to tell you, anywhere it's been, and Eddie may have an answer on that. Anywhere that we've cut or milled, they've told us they're fine. We specifically ask. And I believe I've been updating in the board meetings, but we will definitely do that. And if you guys recommend, we can look at it. If you want me to do some testing with an engineer, but it's up to you guys. Ladies, guys. All right. Good. All right. So that takes care of the roads. Any other questions on the roads? They're excellent questions, and we definitely got to address it. All right. What's the other thing in there, Steve? What else do I got in there? Drainage or something? No. That's it, right? What else is in the DMA? Bulkheads.
EMA is bulkheads, yeah.
All right, I'm sorry about that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about bulkheads. So.
Yeah, bulkheads. Did you want to talk about bulkheads or?
So yeah, we're gonna talk about the bulkheads. We got to talk about the bulkheads.
Okay.
So, all right, the bulkheads is a different situation. Steve, the bulkheads, just correct me. The bulkheads are not on our books. They're not on our balance sheet, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Just
so
right.
now I don't know about the general ones. If they're in there somewhere, they might be somewhere. Not sure. Hope they are, because we own them. But the other ones are owned by the homeowners.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The common areas would be.
They're in there somewhere, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So you all know that that's pretty much pay as you go or go as we pay. That one's different. There is no reserve for bulkheads. There's 90, Steve, you're going to have to do a quick calculation for me. There's 90, just round numbers, it's 90,000 linear feet. Now, we have been doing it. And we have evaluations. In fact, I met with Noby this morning. We're going to do another 4-year plan, part of our strategic planning that we've been doing. He's going to start the next 4-year plan because the work we're doing now, or that we will be doing, is the last year of the current 4-year plan. So we'd have to go, and they do an evaluation of the bulkheads, just like the roads, to see what's needed, but this is a little different, but I just want to make sure we're all aware. Sometimes we're not thinking about it. I'm not, I'll say it myself. I don't want to point at anybody, but there is no reserve for bulkheads, but we don't own it. It's not on our books. I just want to point that out. So if I've lived here for 20 years, I paid that bulkhead fee because I have a bulkhead, and my bulkhead comes due in 3 years, and we decide not to fund it that year, there's no money in there. That's all I want to point out, but this has been going on for 50 years or whatever. And I don't believe that affects Ocean Pines. I don't know, what do you all think?
Well, if it's clearly not on the balance sheet, that's a big deal. And I think that, that creates a scenario that can be treated differently from other things.
Dick, I'm with you. I think I'm with you. I just want to point it out. You know what I mean? That's all. I see it the same way you did, Dick, but.
Don, will you say that one more time? If the
Yeah.
bulkhead's not on the balance sheet,
Right, so we have,
owner-
so Ocean Pines has just general numbers, I don't know if it's 93,000. We have 90,000 linear feet of bulkheads. Now, we did jumpstart the program 4 years ago, and we've done, I don't know how much, 3, 6, and we've probably done about 10,000 linear feet. What we will have done over the next couple of months. So we have a plan, we have evaluations, we're looking good. We're going to come forward with the next 4-year plan. We're working on it. In fact, one of the first meetings was last week, and then this morning, nobody gave maybe an update, and Eddie. So if we do 2,000 linear feet next year, and Steve, what's the average? Let's use $500 a linear foot, right? It's easy, right? So 2,000 linear feet times 500, I can figure that out. That's $1 million. So then we say, okay, the $1 million, and we divide that by the number of bulkhead people or whatever lots, and then come up with the number, which is probably, Steve, what is it, about 600? I don't know, 600? What we used last year? I don't have my-
So
It's around $600.
600 a linear foot. Okay.
No, 600, no, 500 linear feet, but what we assessed to the association bulkhead,
Yeah.
what did we do last year? I think it was around 600. Let's go with that number.
Yeah.
the amount of money.
615, I think it was, to be
650, I'm
exact.
in the ballpark for this
Yeah.
again. So we're in the ballpark. That'll fund $1 million for what we say we're going to do. So it's year to year. We don't have a reserve for it. I will have a strategic plan update, which we're working on now. And obviously we'll have an estimate for what we're going to do next year. And we'll say, okay, 2,000 linear feet. We're getting estimates, $500. That's $1 million. We would have to charge the bulkhead lot owners $600, $615, whatever. That money comes in with the assessment. We do have some balance in the bulkhead, but that's what we're going to use to pay.
okay, so they pay us, you put it in a fund, and then you use that fund to do the bulkheads.
Correct.
Let's just say those people don't pay you, what happens?
So if they don't pay, I'm going to be short on how much I have to do. Now, there is some money in there. It's a couple thousand. If they don't pay, well, then obviously we have, it's a separate situation, and then we have to go to collections and all that. I haven't seen that
But you would
situation.
still do the bulkheads.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to have a contract. Yes, I would have to do it. Correct.
Okay,
But the point there is that there's no reserves, all right? That's
Right.
the point. And as Dick pointed out, and I'm saying, we think this is a separate category. And it's not on the books outside of the general, wherever that is. Okay,
Turns Landing is treated differently.
yeah, so these are good points. So Turns Landing, and I don't know why I've asked, but Turns Landing, when that was developed, you're right, for some reason, Ocean Pines is not the one responsible or the one that brings in the outside contractor to replace it. They do it themselves, and each homeowner does it separately. So if you're somebody like me, that I went there to look at a house a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, they want that money, and I see, they're telling me, hey, 200 linear feet of bulkhead, and I'm like, okay. Well, 200 times $500 is, how much is that, Steve? 100 grand? And I'm like, I got to pay that. So you're right, that's separate. Here, everybody pays over time. And when their time comes, it's replaced. And we will have a 4-year plan over the next couple of months, telling you what we're going to do each year.
Has
Terms are separate.
has there been movement from the bulkhead owners to deviate from pay-as-you-go? In other words, have they been asking for something else, or have they been generally fine with pay-as-you-go?
I don't even know if they realize it, to be honest with you. I don't know. It was one of the things when I first came down here looking at this stuff 15 years ago, I was trying to figure it out. And I don't know what's happened over the 50 years. I'll ask somebody who I know has been involved with the finances over the last 15, 20. I will ask Pete, see what he says, what he knows.
I mean, you don't hear it coming up at board
No,
meetings
right.
where people are looking for some different approach. I haven't heard a different approach.
No, agree. Totally agree. And I don't think that's going to come.
Yeah, this is Tom. When Yvette joined BNF, one of the reasons she joined, she had to pay for her own bulkhead, and she wanted an understanding as to why.
Yeah.
And now she knows it was a separate development. I know several people who have to pay for their own, and there's really no going back.
That's right. And it's in it, right? And it's in,
HOA with it.
yeah. And Tom, you're right. And I can see why she did that. I got to be honest with you. When I first came down here, I didn't know. There's a lot of things I couldn't figure out. Legacy, reserve, this and that, 5-year plan. We're in the 7th year. And I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just things I couldn't figure out. And even with depreciation, no depreciation, and she's right. I had somebody call me a couple months ago, maybe Linda, I don't know if it was Linda or somebody else they called, but they had just bought a house. I think it was Harbor Village, if I didn't mix up with Colonial, it was Harbor, Linda. And they were informed right after they bought this house that that the bulkhead wasn't good. And I guess somebody didn't tell them that they were responsible for it. So, yeah, but that's separate from us.
Is Turns Landing an HOA within OPA? Like the park?
It's an I know it's, it has its separate rules and everything. I don't know if it's an HOA, but it definitely has its separate governing body or whatever. I don't know if it's officially, and you're right, the park is an HOA, right, Tom?
Correct.
So I don't know if they officially are an HOA, but they're a separate. And again, the park is an HOA within an HOA. And all that means is that basically they do all their own stuff and we really don't do that much for them, right, Tom?
That's correct. OPA is the master HOA and we're a subordinate.
Right.
HOA.
Right. So Turns Landing is their own separate, but their overall is HOA. They pay their HOA fees. They just don't pay it on the bulkhead if they have a bulkhead. And I think they have their own whatever things with their mailboxes and different things like that. And they might even have their own bylaws or something. I'm looking at Linda, isn't that correct or something? Yeah, they have their own sections, separate bylaws, which isn't uncommon here for even the other 18 or 16 sections or whatever we have.
I'll just throw the question out there. BNF, given the fact that the bulkheads are on the balance sheet, and given the fact that you're limited as to what you can do seasonally to accomplish work there, how do you feel on the pay-as-you-go?
I'm sorry, you're asking your team or you're asking?
Yes, BNF, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's your team.
Thoughts?
I'm sorry, Dick, how do we feel about the page?
How do you, right now, the process with bulkheads is each year we collect money really for the next year.
Yeah.
And we can only kind of do a limited amount seasonally each year. These items aren't on the balance sheet. So the practice for the longest time has been basically to collect really what you're going to do the next year and do the work. Are you okay with that practice continuing, I guess is the question.
Well, I guess if there's an emergency and they have to do more than 2,000 feet or something, how is that handled? Where does that money come from? Do we make it up the next year or what do we do there?
That's happened.
Yeah,
It's happened, right? Go ahead, Tom, you want to answer it or you want me to answer it? It happened. Go ahead.
Well, in my opinion, the bulkhead fee should be, you pay as you go in a common interest community. You pay as you go, period. And remember, those with bulkheads, their houses just went up 30% in value. I don't feel sorry for them. Sorry, we don't have a single bulkhead in the park. But
That's right, we can't have the bulkheads. We can't even put them in.
yeah. No,
Okay,
frankly, I'm okay with it. But I guess the question is, if something collapses, how do, we
Yeah,
do
I'll
600 on the assessment right now. And if we get to the point we do 2,000 square feet and something, for some reason collapses,
Right. So I'll
we
answer
make that up the next year on the assessment, I would think.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I don't have it in front of me. And Tom's right, it just came up last year. I came to the board. Down in some of the general areas, it was really bad. And I showed the board and I showed everybody pictures of it. We had an opportunity with the outside contractor to get a good price. He was available. And we got a better price and we did it. Now we did have, I think it was 200,000 or whatever, but like I said, and I don't have it in front of me, but we do have a somewhat of a balance in there, a couple 100,000. Obviously, if it's millions, that would be a different story. We'd have to address that. And then I heard somebody in there say, well, then it would be in the next assessment. I don't believe we've had anything like that, at least since I've been around. But, I can ask somebody that's been around a long time, but anything's possible. The one thing I'll tell you is this. The bulkheads that, in general, I'm talking here, the ones that get the biggest hit, weather-wise and everything, we've pretty much replaced them over the last several years. So I think we're okay, but you're right. It would probably be then in the next assessment. The work, by the time we got to the work, would probably be in the next assessment anyway. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
we also have the dredging. Remember the meeting where the lawyer stood there and said, I'm paying for dredging and it's not being done and that should be a separate account and all that. And we pretty much said, no, it's fungible money. It's going to stay where it's going to stay.
I would love, who's that? Tom, was that Tom was talking? I couldn't tell. Tom?
Yes, that was me.
Okay, so good memory. Let's talk about that. That definitely needs to be addressed. And you're right. That gentleman, first of all, I got to tell you, and I was, I just came into this position or whatever. And you're right. The kind of the answer, you're a little more blunt or whatever. But yeah, that was. But let's look at that because I think this needs to be discussed. Dredging. And you're right. We couldn't do the dredging for so many years. We couldn't get the permits, and we just got them now from what, Linda, 4 years ago? 4 years ago, and we're doing that. But the dredging is part of the general $25 or whatever we all put in, right, Steve? And then it for, again, 30 years before I got here or any of us landed here, they just pooled it with the bulkhead money. I had no idea. The gentleman was asking, where's my money all these years? I don't, it was pooled. I mean, that was before us. It continues to be pooled. Maybe that's something we look at. Maybe you even got to look at dredging. Dredging only is usually for like 5 or 10 people or 10 houses a year or whatever. So you got a lot paying for 10. And I think that was the guy's point also, the gentleman's point. You need to think about that. Do we break it out? Do we look at this thing? Why is everybody paying for it? But, that's how it's been all these years. It was probably a very small number in the past. I don't even know how long you can even dredge with the way things are going, but I'm asking now because I don't know. Everybody understand what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah. John, I
No, it's
think
cool.
if it's not a problem for you guys, I wouldn't change anything. I'd just leave it alone.
Okay. Yeah, but it's pooled. I can't tell you how much is in there. Nobody can. We don't know. It was been pooled for, I don't know, 20 years or however they started this thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, John.
Okay.
As far as the bulkheads go, I believe, my personal opinion is we should just continue on what we're doing as far as paying as you go.
That's fine with me.
Could I just ask a question? If I'm a bulkhead, if I'm an owner with a bulkhead and I've been paying in $400, $500, $600 a year for however many years. And I think that my bulkhead needs replacing, and I feel like it's not getting addressed. I mean, do we have something to tell that particular homeowner that, you know, you're on a schedule and it's coming up and you're going to get your new bulkhead eventually? What's the?
We get questions like that? Yeah, so excellent. So obviously that would be a question for info@oceanpines.org. We're on it. We do get questions like that. They do go there, and if not, we direct them there. We have, like I said, we have these studies. We're doing the next one. We're working on it now with the engineers. We have evaluations of all the bulkheads. We'll be coming out with that. We'll list all the houses like we just did the last 4 years. And we'll show everybody over the next 4 years who is on that list. If it is somebody that feels that it isn't or whatever, we'll look at it. Maybe it just needs a repair. Maybe, you know, all our, you know, our outside experts and whatever we bring in, and even our own evaluators, we tell them, hey, it's good. Look, it's good. So nothing has come across my desk that we made a change. We may have done a slight repair or something.
Right. Okay, good. I was just, you know, interested to know how you manage or handle members who say, you know, hey, my bulkhead needs replacing,
Right.
but you back them up with facts and schedule, and that's their answer.
Yeah, and then what they may do, I've seen this, Brian, you know, they may put a piling in to double support the wall or something like that, to keep it until we need to do it.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Yeah, then I think pay as you go is the ticket. I don't, you know, unless you want to provide some for the emergency things that might come up, you know, to have a little bit of reserve for that. But
Okay.
we seem to have a way to deal with that too.
Yeah. All right. So, you know, and again, that did not come up in the two. Obviously, we were not, you know, DMA didn't say to us, hey, you need to do that. I think they're fine with that too, but we'll bring it up when next time it comes in.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think I have, Steve, unless you got something, I think I addressed everything I wanted to. I think we were pretty comprehensive. And anything you want to add, Steve, or any questions for Steve or me? Well, Linda's here also. She wanted to be able to.
I'm good.
Okay,
Great.
good reserve discussion. Thanks.
Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
So let's move to the second part, which is the financial results for July.
Steve.
Okay.
All right, so wait, so I'll make sure so Dick, you're gonna go through it with your team and then just ask us questions. You're not gonna have Steve read every number, are you?
We'll go through it, and as we, I don't have a printout here because my printer's not working, but I have it on my phone, and I have some notes here. So we'll just kind of flip through like we did previously, kind of page by page. Many pages we don't have a question on, but if we have a question, we'll bring it up at that point in time. So the first page, if everyone has that in front of them, is page 2, which is the operating account summary. Clearly, amenities are driving that. Favorable amenities of 503. That's driving total favorable balance on the bottom line. Anybody have a question on that page?
Yes, this is Brian. I think we've addressed this before, but the public works and general maintenance expenses are favorable by like 100K. And it amazes me that, you know, we're getting it all done with that much less expenses. Is that mostly manpower that's that drop? Or are we finding some significant savings in like supplies or?
There's a
some
little
other
bit of
areas?
both, bit of both, Brian. So like for the month for Public Works, on the fourth page, I break it down. Salary benefits 16,000, but then you also have repairs and maintenance for 13,000. So, you know, there is a you know, a mix of the two.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Question.
Yeah.
So do we need some more manpower? Or are we still struggling to find some help?
I am not aware of any additional oncoming help that we've received in down there. So we still have that vacancy. So, John, are you aware of Eddie having any potential backfills?
Okay, I'm trying to listen. I'm signing off for you. So you're talking about the open positions of Public Works?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so Novi told me this morning they're trying, you know, they're also looking at, you know, possibly in the next budget, increasing the amount we pay to see if that'll work. We've made offers, we've had individuals that were interested. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. I don't want to get into them, but just never worked out at the end, whether they didn't show up at the end or maybe some type of test or something didn't happen.
Well, kudos to the guys to keeping things going with manpower shortage. It's commendable.
Okay, page 3, I did have one question on the manager's office. I guess we're still showing favorability in the current month and favorability year to date. Some pretty good numbers. I think, Steve, I thought you mentioned previously that there might be some salary allocations that might need to happen there.
Yeah, so Linda's time's being divided between CPI and the manager's office. That has taken effect, but we budgeted that full position over there. Linda's hitting about 60% of that, so that drives some of the favorability there.
But then the offset is in the other place, right? And
Right.
so we can either, reallocate, reclass or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. We keep track of it. So whatever favorability is on one side, you have the offset on the other side. We're tracking that. Steve's tracking that for me.
Compliance permits there, we year to date, $9,000 variance on that.
Yeah. So Steve, so obviously last year with all the sales of all the houses and every day I came into my office and there were stacks of them, that has dried up. That's the part I know, Steve. Is there anything else? So that has dried up, the resales and the money.
Yeah, it's mostly revenues. I mean, it's resales, but they're down a little bit in all their types of revenues, for permits and things like that.
Right.
All right. Any other
Hey,
questions?
yeah, just a comment. Aquatics and golf ops continue to kill it year to date, man. It's amazing.
So a couple of things, and then food and beverage also. Food and beverage. I didn't get updates for this last weekend, but the updates I got for all the rest of the weeks in August were outstanding at food and beverage. Outstanding. I know we're doing July, but I'm just saying it just kind of started to balance out now. I think it's tourism is down in Ocean City or whatever with the golf, but yeah.
Yeah. I just one last note on Yacht Club year to date. I know that I see that they're ahead of budget, but compared to last year, they're significantly down.
Steve will answer that. There is a reason for that, Steve. The bonus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The yacht club. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Bonus.
exactly. It's the other cost. The last year we didn't book the bonus until about September. We were coming off of COVID, and we were unsure what
Okay.
what was, yeah. So that's it.
Gotcha.
Steve
I think
came to me, it looks like they're going to realize this and everything, and he recommended that we start booking it. I totally agree with Steve. So yeah, it's a little difference timing wise from last year, but
Yeah, I noticed the accrual in the detail. Yeah.
yeah, Steve made it
great.
right.
Yeah, I like booking it as you go. Next year, do the budgets. We'll do that there too, but I like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Next item is your reconciliation page, Steve, and obviously other costs down there is what you just mentioned, key item. Is there anything you want to comment on that page, Steve? Other than that?
We're looking at the operating summary sheet by
Yeah.
expense type.
We're looking at your reconciliation, your operating results
Oh, okay.
on that reconciliation page, variance reconciliation page.
Okay, gotcha. The variances. No, we talked about Public Works there, and we hit on Aquatics Yacht Club. Rec and Parks was the only other one that's included on there. That we knew that timing was going to likely occur, so that was expected because July, I think we were a little bit unfavorable. A lot of the Camp Ocean Pines monies came in, or timing of revenues came in August versus the way we allocated the budget. So that's pretty much driving recreation.
All right. No other questions on that. We'll go to operating summary. I did have a question, operating summary page, and that was services and supplies were $26,000 favorable.
Right. Unfavorable. So actually, yeah. So it's showing up as
unfavorable, actually unfavorable.
Yeah. So there's a lot of drivers in there because that's where a lot of different services get lumped in.
Year to date, we're not so bad, but there was a big,
Right. I would need to probably go and look through the GL a little bit to explain the actual walk to 25. You know, you got your legal fees and accounting fees or some of your big charges in the admin. Sometimes the timing versus the budget on a monthly basis throws that off. And then just timing, really a timing perspective ends up being a lot of these, like you say, from a year-to-date perspective, we're pretty much right on, but I'll look into it a little bit more for you.
any other questions there, guys? So let's go down to page 6, which is tennis.
Okay. Hey, Dick, let me, I'm sorry, but I just quickly flipped through and I see golf ops. It looks like one of the big drivers there is also the utilization of chemicals. So it looks like they were overspent by $11,000 for the month. So that's probably a pretty big driver, that 25,000.
Okay.
Okay. Tennis.
Any questions on tennis?
Well,
Plus bottom line.
wage and benefits, year to date, pretty much on, but the month looks kind of funny there with a month budget of 4,200 and we spent 1,000. I know last month, Steve, we talked about that maybe being an allocation issue. Is there an adjustment here or?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
you're seeing the true up that I made at the end of the month because
Okay.
yeah. So now it puts us on target year to date. Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. I just want to confirm it. Thank you.
All right. Platform tennis on budget for the month, 8+ year to date. Yeah, I think there's more going on there, which is a good thing. You got the spec tennis and you got the timeless tennis and so that's a reflection of more happening there. That's a good thing. All right, no questions there. We'll go down to pickleball. This is probably your adjustment, huh, Steve? Maybe? No, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, for pickleball, our revenues missed a little bit for the month, you know, which drives the negative, you know, for drop-ins. You know, still a great story from a year-to-date perspective. But yeah, I mean, there's some wage and benefit adjustments there as well.
My guess is that special event miss is a timing issue.
Correct.
And drop-ins, well, we were pretty aggressive with our drop-ins at 5K versus 3.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, membership really kicked up this year. So I suspect if we were budgeting, we were thinking maybe more drop-in money, but previous drop-ins probably slipped over membership.
Oh.
Seems like regular tennis is taking a hit and platform tennis and pickleball are picking up the slack.
Yeah, it's consistent theme.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions there?
Nope.
All right, aquatics, which Brian mentioned earlier, really good things happening there.
Utilities, year to date, almost 20,000, 19,000 favorable.
Yeah, it's quite surprising. We did get a credit. We've gotten a co-op credit where we get a check, and now they've actually applied it to some of the bills here. So I just found out about that for July. So that's definitely driving. I think it was about 5,000 for aquatics and maybe 8,000 credit for yacht club. So pretty large there. It's, you know, still being, I guess, you know, the big number that we have in there is the gas usage at the sports core, which obviously is not being utilized here a lot in the summertime. But yeah, I mean, it's a good number in terms of being favorable at this point.
Yeah, I saw Yacht Club too had utilities low, so that's what that is.
Yeah, it's the credit that we got.
Yeah, you know, member dues are still killing it. Obviously, day fees are right on target. So, yeah, aquatics, it's a good story there. I don't have any other questions on aquatics as anybody else does.
Wife
All right.
says the yacht club pool is rocking every day.
Let's go to the Rockin' Golf Course there. Next page is the golf course. Another positive month, up 15K in revenues, and certainly 148K for the year to date, still looking very good. Bottom line is kind of on target. Bottom line year to date, 126K ahead. You probably see your services and fees here, I would guess, services and supplies kicking up that
Yeah.
11K.
Yeah.
There was a reason for that increase. Steve, you got the reason for that increase on the services and supplies from 36 to 47 in the budget?
Well, the big driver there is the chemicals and fertilizers and such. I mean, there might be some other expenses in there that have to pull out the detail. Go ahead, John. You probably know what that is.
So we were told at the beginning fertilizing prices are going up, just put on any
Yeah.
business channel, whatever. Some of this is timing, so it's not, I believe some of it's gonna balance out. It's not all, increase in prices, so we'll try to get something next month. But that's what I was told, which is a good thing.
We had a healthy increase in miscellaneous revenue a month.
So
Yeah,
Steve,
so
that's
junior,
Junior golf.
Yeah.
primarily, yeah. There's some lessons and things that go
That's
in
what
there.
it always is.
Any other golf questions?
Nope.
Clubhouse Grill is next. Positive for the month, revenue, positive for the year, 30K. Bottom line, for the month, 6K unfavorable and 2K unfavorable year to date. And 2K unfavorable prior year. You know what, I noticed one thing when I was looking at the clubhouse. The cost of goods for, liquor and food is 10 points higher there than the yacht club and 14 points higher there than the beach club. So there's some kind of extra margin going on cost at the clubhouse, different from other places. I guess it's a question. I kind of wonder why.
Me too.
Steve, you want to take that as a takeaway and ask Ralph?
Yeah.
We've seen that before, but that's duly noted. We'll get an answer on it.
That revenues look really good. Any other questions, clubhouse?
So if you have no other questions, I just want to add something on the.
I guess one thing to note on the clubhouse, we don't have the banquets, which give you the higher margin probably, right? But yeah, I'll definitely pull that into Ralph.
It shouldn't affect the beverage though. I made it might. Okay, so just on this, because we've talked about this and the T-docks, the additional T-docks and the water tax. I don't have quantified numbers. However, from Ron Fisher, from Ralph, from Matt Ort, from the individual doing the water tax and everything, everybody's confirming that both items are bringing in extra business to the yacht club.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
All right, beach club. Revenue 14K favorable for the month, year to date 69K favorable. Prior year, we're up 35K over the prior year. So that's the revenue. All good news on the revenue line, and bottom line is also up as well. 30K for the month, 40K year to date. up 6K over prior year. So it's good things happening, obviously at the beach club. Maybe weather's contributing to that. I don't know, but good things happening. Any
You
specific
have a good product.
questions?
Nope.
All right. Let's go to beach parking. I guess we were a little bit below our budget, but they're 35K above prior year, so that's a good thing. Pretty flat with our budgets, not too much, not too different, bottom line.
I noticed that wages and benefits are down compared to last year and compared to budget. Are we short personnel there, or are we got some new blood that are getting paid less?
Yeah, good question.
I think there, I asked Kathleen this last month, and she said that I think it had to do with the bathroom attendants this year or something, but,
Yeah, Steve, you're right on track. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So, based on our budget, we had some people out on the attendance, and whatnot. So that, I think that's driving it.
Okay.
Yeah, I see there was an advertisement for a bathroom attendant on your website.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and there hasn't been one there last week. Couple
Yeah.
days we had one there.
Yeah.
Okay. So there it is. Yeah.
Tough job.
Thanks.
It's a tough job to hire for, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a tough job to sit there all day long. Yeah.
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 Job sucks.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
looking.
Okay, next we're back, now we're the yacht club.
Hey, John, about a year ago, we talked about the evaluation sheets that Matt was going to put out. Are you getting any information back on those from people at the restaurant eating and that? And is he going over any of those? Has he gotten any? What's going on? Do we know?
Yeah, so I have not gotten an update recently, but let me answer this. In the beginning, when that came out, Ralph came in with them numerous times. What I've been doing is I've just been looking on the internet and seeing the comments, which are very positive. I haven't been there the last 2 weeks, but I've been there. The place is packed. I just gauge it like everybody else. Everybody is raving that's there. So I will talk to Ralph or Matt about that, ask them what they have. Right now, we are doing a customer survey, by the by, for golf. I'm starting to get some preliminary numbers, and then we're going to go to aquatics, and then we'll probably do a survey. I'll talk to Ralph and Matt about it for food and beverage. So to answer your question directly, I haven't heard anything recently, but all indications have been very positive.
I saw cards out on the tables when we.
Yeah, they're out.
He's
The
definitely
cards are
doing
out.
it. He's
But
definitely
it's
doing
nobody
it.
season.
Yeah.
He did update me. We went through it a couple times when this was brought up, but then everything was good, and everything's been good there, and there's nothing that led me. So officially, haven't done it in not the last couple of weeks, but they are doing it. I believe everything's fine. Unless somebody knows something that we don't, Place packed.
Yeah, well, that's the month of July, but he's gonna start losing help when those kids go back to school, go back to college. But then we're at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So,
Right, exactly. Just like everything else.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying it. You're right.
A question about facility rental, guys. We're way behind last year on facility rental year to date, and I don't understand how that is when we've got lots of banquet business. What's your feelings on that?
I got a cramp.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small number.
Yeah.
But I can ask them a little bit and try to get some variance explanations for us, because I haven't gotten an update on why that number deviates.
Yeah.
The last report we got, and I've got it here, was the detailed leads tracker. It was dated December 22nd, 2021. Remember this?
Mhm.
And this was banquets and weddings, and it was projected out to actually November of 2023. I'm sure this is at a date by now.
Yeah.
Because, you know, some of these have been completed, but I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so is this what we use for the input for that line, facility rental?
No, it's got to be. I mean, all your revenues are going obviously to the beverage banquet and your food banquet. Somehow they're coding, I guess, some facility rental, I guess, for different events that they're probably not catering, something like that. But I can get confirmation on what actually goes there because it's obviously a small number year to date of only $9,000.
Okay, thanks for that.
Mhm.
I just wanted to comment about food regular and beverage regular year to date. Obviously they're ahead of budget, and that's, been Ort's MO about, under promising and over delivering. But if you look at last year's year to date, it's pretty much flat. And I'm just wondering how much more, revenue they can squeeze out of the yacht club if it's jam packed all the time, or are they at capacity?
So Steve, can I just jump in? I actually believe it was the annual meeting. I said that
Yeah.
you know, almost everything. We're pretty much maxing out. You know, and that's something to consider in budgets and everything like that. But you're right. I mean, that yacht club is packed. Now, obviously the upstairs or whatever, I'm not gonna get into other stuff, but
Yeah.
I mean, everything's packed.
Well, that's great. I mean, you can't complain about that.
Yeah, aquatics, everything.
Okay, just want to make a comment on that.
So I kind of took a look at the bottom line of the yacht club and I tried to factor in the bonus. When I factor in the bonus adjustment, we're still a little bit ahead of last year. I did take a look at the Madort reports for the yacht club, and on a good note, our margins for food and beverage and banquets, no, it's just food and beverage, excuse me, margin of food and beverage are improved over last year. So that's a nice trend.
Yeah, no, you're right. How about the salaries? Did you look at the salaries? You got anything on that?
I don't have the MAT report in front of me right now, but
That was good too.
uh,
I didn't see anything, John.
John, you're saying less salaries?
No, I was just asking. I don't have the Madort in front of me either. I just have it electronically, so I didn't look at it. I was just wondering if he saw a salary increase, you know.
Yeah, the salaries are up. I don't have the
Salaries are
report in front of me,
Okay.
but the salaries
Yeah,
are
about
up.
30,000. So
But
Yeah.
that goes with volume too, you know.
Yeah, it goes with the volume and that.
Hey, I noticed on Ort's Yacht Club report, credit card fees are down year to date $5,000. And we've spent some time discussing how much we're paying on that stuff. Are we getting a better rate this year?
no, we're still getting we still have the same contract. It really just deviates, I think, like I said, with what type of cards that are utilized and such.
Mhm.
Yeah.
$5,000, we'll take it. Right,
Yeah.
Don?
All right. Any other yacht club comments, questions? All right, let's go down to Marina. Revenue's up. Month year to date, you'd expect that because price is up. We're 16K below prior year. Is that revenue? Let me see. That must be bottom line. Yeah, that's the bottom line. Okay, 16K below prior year. So with all that's going on there, limited pumps and things. That's not such
The
a,
limited pumps, please, let me, the limited pumps, we're meeting all demand. I'm trying to see what that, I know what you're talking about on there. I know I looked at it, I just can't remember, but he was just here yesterday. His margins are the same, he told me, so I don't know if that matters with the mix, Steve. But I'm just looking, there was a reason for it.
Reason for, I'm sorry, what was the question?
So he's down from prior year. We're down from prior year. He's above budget, but he's down from prior year. But there was a reason. Last year, okay, it's come to, so last year, remember, he had bought the gas the year before. And it was at a really low price. So we knew when we budgeted this year, odds are we were not going to have that situation. So that's why you're favorable to budget, but you're not favorable to last year. Is last year that mix that he had bought the gas early, made that decision. We made that decision. He recommended, of course, it was him. And it paid off because we got it at a cheaper price. So that is my explanation of it. That's the way I rationalized it. Now, if you guys see something else, let us know. Everybody understand what I just said?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something else in the numbers, let us know, but that was my thoughts on it.
so that cheaper gas in the beginning of the season, he was selling at a lower price than market, I guess, huh?
So last year, right, so he was able to, his prices, which are always cheaper, he was even cheaper, but he made more money on it. And he certainly got more volume in the beginning. So that whole mix with the cheaper gas helped him, whether it was volume and other, So we knew we weren't going to have that this year.
Okay. All righty.
John, on the T-Docks, we've had this discussion about how we're gonna maintain that you could only stay there for an hour and you had to get out, and how did that all turn out?
So the only way I'm going to judge that right now I haven't gotten an update from anybody on it, but nobody has come to me with issues on it. I have heard some people do stay or whatever, but sounds like it's been managed. Nobody has brought forward to me. Nobody has complained to me, whether marina people, Ron Fisher, Debbie, or anybody. So I think it's working out all right. Yeah.
You're going back to credit card fees on the golf course. They don't take cash.
That's right.
On the report, I see no credit card fees on the golf report. And, you go there to hit a bucket of balls for $5 and you use a credit card. So we get charged a credit card fee. So,
Yeah, it's in there. It's in services supplies. It's just
Okay.
one thing.
but why don't they take cash? I guess is my question.
Steve, I'll answer it.
Yeah, I'll let you
Who
into
wants
it.
to handle it?
Okay. So to me, and I get it. We don't take cash. I just want to, I'm choosing my words properly. Let's use it as a bit.
You're not going to offend me.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
You won't offend me, John.
Oh, no, it has nothing to do with the golfers or anything. No. It's, we made that decision based upon input and things that were told to me over the years. It's a best practice. I compliment the management team down there for doing it. Maybe we lose a little volume or whatever with it. It was the right thing for us to do.
Oh, I don't think you lose any volume. I was just saying, we're talking about credit card fees, and it just hit me that the golf course only uses a credit card.
Yeah,
And obviously we're getting credit card fees there that maybe we wouldn't get.
Right. You're right. You're right. I mean, we'll relook at it in the budget process. We could certainly discuss it. I would definitely discuss it with the management team based upon the situation that I say inherited or whatever. I believe that was the best way to go then, but we'll certainly revisit it.
Okay. All right. So if we're done with Marina, which I think we are, reserve page is next, page 16. And these are my page numbers, but I suspect they're pretty close. I did have a question on the new capital. So we're in the whole 49K. What?
Yeah. Transfers required, that's Steve.
Yeah, so we gotta do the transfers. Basically, the transfer that we booked already is the 60K for the T-Docks. The other things that are hitting there are the mailbox pedestals and the new pickleball courts. So that the mailbox pedestals is kind of what puts us over. So we still need to transfer for that.
So and spot on, Stephen, that now that we've recognized the favorability and everything, and like I mentioned, we'll do those transfers and everything. But here's what I was saying when you get a question about the reserves. That's why I asked, what is the question, or anybody, because I knew this wasn't updated and we were gonna update it. And that's just timing. And we said we would do it, but Steve had to put somewhere all the charges for the mailboxes, T-Docks and whatever. We said we were gonna fund it out of the favorability once realized, which is happening as we speak. It just happened. And we're gonna do that now. So
right.
those are the things I just wanted to explain when somebody was asking questions on reserves.
So when we do that, understand that. For years, for a while in there, ever since we started this new capital thing and we transferred money from the get-go, the first money we transferred was money for the aquatics indoor pool. And if I can't remember, maybe it was the room. I don't even know, can't recall what it was for, but that was the first amount of money we put in there. Are we still holding money in that cause in there, or is that somehow just behind us?
No, I think it's behind us.
I think it's behind.
At one point, the 100K, the room, it was for the extra room on
Yeah,
the sports
It
score.
was 200K.
And the board put 100K in.
So the
Following year, it was dropped.
It was
So-
repurposed.
Yeah, it was in the budget, and I think in the committee, we were not in favor of that
We were not.
because the return was only like 6,000 a year. And all the costs were not in it because there were gonna be some costs that for hookups and things like that weren't included in that I think our people were going to do or something. Water, restroom, something like that.
In attendance,
Yeah.
someone to watch over the
Yeah.
building. It was an idea along with paving the path around the pond.
Right.
We didn't look favorably on that either, simply because of the erosion issue.
Mhm.
That was like $200,000,
Yeah,
if I remember
and
correctly.
that was upfront costs. There were other
Yes.
hidden costs that we didn't like.
And keep in mind the mailboxes now, right? The mailboxes, that's new capital. We just spent, I don't know, about $80,000. That's and more. We're doing the mailboxes and we're also renovating them. So there is new capital coming in there, being charged there. And like Steve said, we still have to make the recommendation on the transfer because we said we were going to pay for the T-Docks, and a few other things, added a favorability, which we now realized. And I'll make that recommendation to the board and to BNF, but we've talked about it. And then you'll see a balance building back up in there, right, Steve? I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Right, correct.
So, John, I have a question going forward
Okay.
on the mailboxes. You know me and the cluster boxes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Now, when Larry pushed the 10% to fund the new capital, and I know Doug Parks is sitting here, we always said, well, we're setting money aside for a purpose. What is the purpose? That's why we pulled these different projects out to kind of say, well, we're going to use money for this, that, and the other. Here's what I'm getting at. Are we going to put the mailboxes into the reserves and fund them out of reserve? Or are we going to fund the replacement out of new capital? Obviously, it's going to be new capital now, but going forward, what's the plan?
So, no, good question. So a couple things with the mailboxes. First of all, if we never had, they were never on our books, they're new capital. Then if you want to build up a reserve, fine, but technically it should go through new capital, which it's going to, or anything else of that nature. Once you get them on the books, then you can start setting up the reserve. That's the way I see it. Steve, you agree?
Yes, and then I guess when we update the reserve study, then we include those now that we have, and then that would depreciate over,
Right.
we'd be contributing to that reserve fund.
Exactly. So the answer is if you want me or somebody wants more mailboxes, in the budget process, we fund for it, but it goes into new capital. Like Steve said, once we get those mailboxes in that we paid for, those mailboxes get shifted over to the reserve study, and then we start depreciation and reserving for those. So that's the answer to your question, but I want to answer the second part. If that's good, I want to answer the 10% question that you had. Okay?
Okay,
Okay, so the 10%, yeah, I heard that too when I sat in the meetings. The one thing that I will, since day one, and I will continue, is this. When you fund new capital and you take the 10% away from the depreciation or that contribution, and you say it has no effect on the assessment, well, it's not totally true, because you just lowered the amount that I need to have in replacement that now I'm short. And then if you come back the next year or 2 years and say to me, hey, look at your reserves, you need to have more for general replacement. Well, yeah, you took 10% a year. And now, pay me now, pay me later. So look, not saying anybody on this call or anything, but we just need to understand that if we continue with this, and you're right, it was for something. I don't know what, you got to ask the board. If you all don't know on a BNF, I don't remember ever hearing anything specific. But if you have money in there and you're using, you do have new capital, which we always have at times, but it's smaller than, outside of the mailbox, it actually was smaller than I thought. I thought every year we usually got hit 20, 30,000. We've proved over the last 5 years, it's even less than that, hitting new capital. So it's not a big number at all. But let's see when Steve makes all the reclasses, and I ask for the transfers from the board, let's see what that balance is in there. But it's certainly something for BNF and the board to decide on in the next budget process. I mean, I'll make recommendations if asked, but I don't know what the 10% is for outside of something, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. I don't know what to answer you on. I don't know what it is.
So for this year, John, we don't have a 10% yet.
Well, when Steve puts back the money, you're going to see a balance in there. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
But that's what I was saying. We need to do those transfers, those reclasses now, because all the charges went in there. But because we hadn't realized the favorability, it just took away from the other thing. It's just a mechanical thing right now. Let's work that up. But that's what I was saying.
And so the money for
We need to do
T-Docs and the money for the Racket Center and the money it's coming from the surplus. So we're going to
Right,
move
so
that
the
over.
renovation of the pickleball, if this is what you said, renovation of pickleball courts, which is happening as we speak, or it's going to happen, it's somewhere around 70,000. We were not able to do it before the end of the year. So I had favorability there. And what I'm saying now is I'm going to come to the board, I'm going to come to BNF, which I've already done. I'm going to say, okay, out of that favorability that's now realized because we closed the books, I want to transfer $70,000 to pay for that. And Steve, what do you have? Well, you didn't start getting expenses yet for the.
I think I got a $25,000 deposit on that. so-
Okay, so wherever that is, we need to offset. I don't know, did you put that in new capital too?
No.
Okay, well, wherever that is, we need to adjust that. And same thing with the T-Docs. So when he charged the T-Docs in there, now we'll put the money back. So you'll see that balance that was there come back. We just need to do that. This is the timing where we would normally.
I understand all that. 100%.
Okay, but somebody else didn't understand. I
Yeah,
just
I
want to make sure.
understand that. But I
Okay.
guess my question was, for this year, we did not authorize another 10 or 8% of unknown new capital to go into that fund.
Steve?
Yeah, that's correct. We did not contribute. We put the full contribution in replacement. 1.7 million. Yes.
All right.
Looking at bridge lights for our Northgate Bridge there. I assume they're in, but they're not up yet as I drive across the bridge.
So the four, what I'll call anchor lights are in. And I passed them this morning. I looked at them because I got some info at Ocean Pines questions on them.
Okay.
The other 12, 6 on each side, they're going to probably be in over the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
They're working
How
on, they
about-
just trenched all the wires for them.
Okay.
All the materials in. Yeah, we just got to get the manpower out there, and I was told that's going to happen over the next week or two.
Are we gonna do anything to improve the look of the section where they took the shack out? Where they removed the shack? There's like a piece of plywood sitting over there. It looks,
So.
it looks terrible.
So, okay, so we actually fixed the railings around it. We fixed that over the last month or two. We're going to be working on the guardrails right? We're mandated to the entrances.
That was my next
Yeah.
question. That was
So,
my
right,
next
so
question. Are we in the
that's
guardrails?
coming. We're working on it. It should be coming soon. As far as where the guard shack was, we did put whatever the railings there. What are you recommending, or what do you want to see there?
It looks like just some sheets of plywood are stacked over there. Maybe remove those and put, pressure treated wood on their slats or something. It kind of looks.
Okay,
Didn't we discuss about maybe putting some landscaping in there or some plants or something?
we did.
Oh, maybe that's a suggestion.
No, we did. Let's get the lights in. Let me get those railings. We'll look at it.
It's a work in progress.
I understand what you're saying about the boards for the flooring. We can definitely do that. We should do that. And then after that, we can see if we still want to put, the spring or whatever, or put something there. They'll probably put the Christmas tree, the holiday tree there.
There you go.
We'll look at it.
Holiday.
The new anchor lights look great. I haven't seen them lit up. Are they operational?
I think they look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen them
I
lit
got a lot of positive feedback on it. Somebody asked us why we positioned them different than in the picture, which we did. I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with
Nice.
it. I don't think it matters, but
Okay.
Yeah, me
I was talking about the globe lights. They're still
Right,
hanging there.
right, yeah.
globe lights coming down. That's all coming down.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, are Public Works gonna cut the wood out that's holding the old?
Yes, sir. So, right, so you're right, all those extension arms where the globes are on, all gonna be cut down, all gonna be uniform. It's gonna look way better. And you're gonna have the beautiful blue pole lights that match but single light at the top that match the anchor lights. Yeah. I think
Great,
it's gonna
great.
look nice.
If I can make one recommendation, make
Sure.
sure they cut it at an angle, so it's not just
I understand, just
a
like the
flat
power ones.
thing. Yeah, right, exactly.
All right, no, good point.
Thanks.
Okay,
Linda's gonna follow up. No, you're right. I understand. We can put copper tops on them if we cut them level, but that's fine. All right,
next page is the capital summary page. I don't have any questions on that. If anybody has a question on that, please bring up. That's really just a detail of where the money's been spent.
Josh, you're on this, right? You videotaped this, right? Because I know people are gonna wanna watch it as far as the beginning that pertains to the homeowners association legislation, right? You're videotaping? Josh? All right, I'm sorry.
Yes, but I was muted.
It's muted.
Okay, yes, good. All right, I'm sorry, Dick, go ahead. So we're on your capital.
So if there's no questions, the capital summary page, the next one is the balance sheet. Any questions on the balance sheet? The numbers that I compare from prior year to this year all look fairly reasonable to me as I go through it. I see our surplus sitting there, 2,047,000 prior year. Yeah, I don't have any balance sheet questions.
So I just want to point out the cash is increasing. I mean, granted, our liabilities went up a little bit, but the cash is increasing. I always look at that. It certainly reflects everything else that we have going on. It's a very positive for the association, everybody.
Yeah, cash is up a little bit. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Good.
My only note was accounts payable is up 270K over last year.
Yes, but I said even the cash is up even with that. Steve, I don't know if you want to, sometimes it's just timing, but Steve, is there anything specifically you can point to?
Probably got some pickleball court money there.
Steve, anything on the current liability?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't know anything specific. Fish or Marine with bulkheads is always a timing because we end up paying in big chunks. I know we're doing the replacement pipes with Pelican, which are big numbers as well. So
Yeah. Okay.
anything, yeah.
And by the by, on the Pelican, the pipes there, I got an update this morning. They're doing those major pipes that on your way into the yacht club, right? With the sail, the big sail thing is.
Yep.
That very positive. We've had breakdowns on those pipes over the years that we had to go in and just, you know,
Yeah, I remember.
so what they told me was that those pipes were so full and they were able to clean that out. It should definitely help pushing the water down towards the ditches that go out then out to the bay. So we're hoping to see some positive stuff there with that, but that's coming out really well. Well, you'll get an update at the board meeting on it.
Okay.
Dick, if I may add, because I think you really should add, I mean, two things. One, I was doing other stuff in the beginning. Did you all ask anything about the fire department? I mean, the quarter is closed. I don't know if Steve sent the stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna come to that at the end, Joe.
Okay, excellent.
I haven't sent it yet. No.
Excellent. And then,
So,
Steve,
So
if you
the
want to say
last thing
something on cash?
on the controller's report is the cash and investment page.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Steve.
Okay. So yeah, the market's turning a little bit with, well, obviously with the increase in the rates. So we're exploring that, John, and committee basically. I know we did a few months ago. Myself and Don, put an RFP out for to get some bids from different banks. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. But I'm working. I guess we decided to stay within Bank of Ocean City. We still have a little bit of money out there in Pacific Western. I think I can get some better rates from Bank of Ocean City, but definitely look for any feedback or recommendations.
We believe we're going to increase the rate, the percentages that we're getting over the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that would happen, yes. Yeah.
And that's without going to different banks, Steve, getting their introductory rates. We're not recommending that. We're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. That's what we ended up with Pacific Western. We ended up in that they were Union Bank, obviously. Then they got bought up, and the HOA turned into Pacific Western. But a lot of these banks will try to lure you over if you bring in new money, but then they'll set you up for a period of time, for a year or 2 years. And then all of a sudden it goes to 0.0001, and then you have to have like $50 million in there to get any better rates. So that's one of the drawbacks. The other, the insurance aspect, there's different ways to insure the money. There's collateralized pledges, there's surety bonds, which we did do through Union Bank. But those run out. The most secure are the ICS accounts, which we have everything in right now, and the CDARS, which is the CDARS spreads it out to all the different banks so that they're all FDIC insured. So that's the two I believe we want to target, and that's the two I think we can still get through Bank of Ocean City.
So you will see increased rates. Okay.
All right. I think that takes us to the controller's report. Thank you, Steve. John. So let's go to the next item on the agenda is just following up on our action list on the Excel spreadsheet. There's 4 items on there. One of them is the firehouse. John, we'll get that one last. But I guess one is we discussed last time we met was continued adding some detailed pages to the controller's report. And Steve, your comments were that's something you're going to be working on in the coming what period of time?
Yeah, I actually sent. Well, John, you want to interlude here at all?
No, this is the detailed pages that talk about some of the categories that we don't get into. We get into amenities because we have the detailed pages.
Oh, Steve, the schedules you gave me yesterday, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve came prepared. He knew you wanted. He's got it.
Yeah. So I got it. I didn't get the okay from the general manager to disperse it. So I was basically waiting for that. I got it. Actually, Mark, who's on the call here, has been great in terms of becoming, I guess, the reporting writer, expert in terms of just
Great. That's a good resource.
Jumping in and trying to write some of the North Star reports, because obviously once you do that for the first time, it takes a little while to get yourself acclimated with it. But so he's becoming more familiarized. I sent John about 5 of the reports, in the same format as the controller, so it breaks it into the same category. So if he's okay with it, I can send you those 5 to the committee.
I mean, I'm fine with him, Steve. He sent it to me yesterday. In fact, I've always wanted the Rec and Parks one. I think it's great. He did a good job on it, him and Mark.
Excellent.
That's
I'll
great.
send it to you. I mean, he
We
pretty
look-
much covered the explanations today, but he'll send
We
it.
look forward to seeing those. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, next item was the Policies and Procedures Manual, which has been a long-term item, outstanding action list item. I guess that was in your hands, John, as far as where we go with that.
His hands are empty.
Yeah.
Wanted to put that
You're
together.
muted, John. I think
Did John start working on them already?
yeah, he must be.
I'm sorry,
He must
wait, I
be.
missed that. I was talking to Linda on something. I'm sorry. We found the email where I told Steve yesterday, send them those reports. All right, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead. What's the question I missed?
So the next item on the action list was the long-standing item that's out there as far as addressing the Policies and Procedures Manual, and it's something that we've been put off for budgets and put off for North Star, and so it's still out there, John, and so it's kind of
So yeah,
complicated.
yeah, so I will respond. So I do know about this. I will answer it. When I was on BNF, Pat Supig asked me to update them, and Mary Bozak, I said I would do them as a BNF volunteer. But then I got pulled in there because then something happened within the next couple of weeks and I went in there to work. And I've been in here working pretty much since then. So I guess they never got done. Nobody else volunteered to do them. We now have a full accounting staff, which we said we needed to get to. We are a lot better place with North Star. We will start looking at them, but there's been a lot going on. I want them done more than anybody. I can't do them right now. I'm hoping that with Steve and Mark now and some of our other resources that we can in the non-busy, if there is a non-busy season, start doing that. With that said, I would hope somebody would volunteer to work on them also, like I did years ago. But you're right, and I do want them done. Now, maybe we put in the budget that we bring in somebody to do that kind of stuff or whatever, but we'll look at that.
Yeah, I guess we did bring this up last time at budget time, and we felt that if we had a technical writer come in, even though we didn't put it in as a line item,
Right.
that the kind of variance that we could kind of work with in our
Right.
overall budget.
Yeah, that's what Dick,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Doug's got his hand raised. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, 1 second, Doug. And so I did at one time approach a retired technical writer who lives in our community. And I asked him about it, and he said he was kind of busy doing things and traveling and so forth. I did catch up with him at a picnic a few weeks back, and he said, "Did you ever get that technical writer?" I said, "Well, no, we didn't." He said, "Well, I still might be interested in doing that." So we have a community member who is a professional technical writer, who you may have an opportunity to contract with to help out to do this in some standardized format that makes a whole lot of sense once you weave this together.
I think Doug has.
Doug, you have a question? Comment?
So, kind of tangential to that item, we took a look at the fact that there's a policy manual and a procedures manual, and clearly the procedures manual has nothing to do with the board. It's operational, and John runs that, and it's up to him to decide how best to approach that. But from a policy manual, if you recall, that item hasn't been updated since 2006. I took it upon myself about 3 months ago to bring it up to the board and say, hey, do we want to take a look at this again? And everybody said, well, yeah, let's take a look at it. So I have since reformatted that entire manual, and I actually put in comments and questions for review and consideration to try and update this manual. I approached the previous board and said, hey, since we weren't really sure, what the status of the general manager was, let's just put this on hold until we had a solid foundation. Well, we've got that solid foundation now. So, and I said, let's not move forward until the new board is seated so we can give them an opportunity. So what I proposed and was accepted by both, the old board, I would assume by the new board, is that I did these updates, presented them to the board. They said, hey, it looks great. And I said, well, let's not do anything until the new board comes in, give them an opportunity to take a look at it. And then what I wanted to do was take that proposed update, present it to BNF and go, all right, guys, here's a first stab at remember, the policy manual, not the procedure manual, but the policy manual, and to get feedback from you guys, and then turn around and give it to John and say, all right, John, it's been looked at by the board, it's been looked at by BNF. Take a stab at it, and let's agree at some point that we have a document that's ready for update. So as soon as probably Friday, after the organizational meeting, everybody's settled, I'm going to go ahead and provide that information to the board, give them till next week, or to the new directors, excuse me, give them to next week to kind of get the feedback, and then Dick and team on the Budget and Finance Committee, excuse me, that you'll have that draft document for review and consideration. And John, it's up to you. I can send it to you at the same time if you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me either way.
So Doug and Steve and Mark, yeah. So if they have the policies, obviously there's a correlation with the procedures. So if they are doing that, and I see Linda shaking her head, yes, it's a good time for us to look at the procedures. So let's talk about putting a work group together. Okay, yeah, no, thanks, Doug. No, that helps a lot.
Yeah. So I think, Doug, from a fiduciary standpoint, the policy is clearly important and required. The procedures it's up to the operations group whether
That's what Doug said, right?
that's needed.
Yeah.
And in the past, someone made a decision, this is before the current management, that tying them together made sense. Now,
That's what I just said.
if that makes sense for the operations team, well, that's a good thing to do. If not, well, the policy
Okay.
is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Dick, we'll put that on the list.
Just one more comment. I think hopefully it'll be evident once you see the updates as to whether or not it makes sense from a consensus perspective to have it as a single document or two documents. Because again, from a board perspective, there's a difference between obviously policy and procedure. So, if there's a policy that says, hey, we want the general manager to have $100,000 signing authority rather than $15,000 signing authority, that doesn't happen at the committee level or at the operational level. It happens at the board level. So my knee-jerk reaction would be there's some certain things that are policy issues that would certainly resolve at the board level. So just an FYI.
Good.
Okay. All right. Next item, we had an action item where I guess George and Don were helping you a little bit, John, as far as in hiring, and some job descriptions were being created. Is that still an open item there?
John, remember,
Yeah, so I know what it is. So two parts to that. One, as far as feedback, as far as benchmarking, as far as what I need for that, I have. Now I'm reviewing, I'm assessing, and it probably will be part of the budget that I do. Yes.
Is there anything else you need from Don or George in that regard at this point in time?
No, if they do have some time, and it doesn't have to be right now, I'll show them the benchmarking and all the other stuff I have to support basically what they were telling me and what we said is the next step. So we can do that. We can put it out over the next 2 or 3 weeks, whatever's good for them.
yeah, I'd like to go over that with you, John.
Yeah,
So
no.
kind of open,
No, absolutely. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah. It'd be good to bring full closure on that thing with George's involvement and Don's involvement.
Oh, yeah. It's just, it wasn't the time yet. The time is coming up in the next couple of months. Agree.
No, I agree. All right. So the
Thank you.
final item is we made our recommendations to the board as far as the MOU. And so the board has seen that. The board has reviewed that with us. John, you have seen that. So then a follow-up question with Colette recently was, kind of where do we stand with that? And she brought up the question of, well, in addition to that, we also need a lease, revisit the lease with the fire department in Ocean Pines. And I guess, John, you had appointed Ted Maroney as kind of a project lead to kind of pull these kind of things together and also move the South Station project forward. Ted was making the suggestion that any kind of discussions with the fire department is negotiating an MOU, or even the negotiating a new lease would be premature based on the kinds of things that we need to discuss and agree on as far as moving forward with the project in itself. So BNF, my opinion here anyway, BNF understands that, And the timing of that happening immediately is probably not as important. The more important part of it is that some of the things in there that BNF had mentioned, if initiatives are moving forward, that those items kind of be considered. I guess one item, Doug, I'll ask this of you. I don't know if Ted Maroney has seen our MOU. Would it be appropriate to give him a copy of our MOU? Okay. So then he can at least see if he's leading a project, or he can at least see what the kind of things that we were talking about. Some of the things that we were talking about that appear to be moving forward are, one of them is a team that looks at fundraising, and that also look at having a fundraising professional participate in that aspect. That was one of our recommendations, and I guess that is something that is moving forward. John, is that correct? Is something Ted is moving forward on?
So actually, I put together a work group. It's me, it's Eddie, it's Ted, it's Dave Van Giesbroek and Steve from the fire department. We have a meeting next week. We've had meetings, correct. We are working on an RFP. I have a few other people. That's the core team. I have a few other people who have background in the RFP for fundraising that are helping us out. We'll get the draft this week. We have a meeting next week. Hopefully we finalize this thing and I go to the board and let them know with the fire department. So yes, we're working on the RFP, that team. Team's already been hit the ground a while ago. So yes, the second part, the MOU, yes, we think it's early, and Ted obviously came forward with that. If there is something that needs to be addressed because we feel it needs to be addressed based upon what we're doing, obviously the team, and we'll do that. That team also then is also looking at contractors and just, you know, high level designs and stuff for the building. So there will be a communication from that team. Josh will be brought in probably next week to give everybody an update. You know, I'll do it at the board meeting, and then we'll put out a communication to Josh from the core members of that team on everything we're doing. So yes, we're doing what you're asking.
Okay, that's good. The second item that it kind of dovetails with where we go with the South Station is BNF made or BNF questioned the need for the North Station. And if truly the North Station is needed to continue on, that there should be a thorough, comprehensive, transparent explanation justifying why it is needed. I guess as we move the EMS equipment over to the new South Station, or the renovated South Station, it leaves probably a couple pumpers in the North Station. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about different things about X miles from a police station, or fire hydrants, or 6-minute responses. Whatever the justification is, it needs to be fully transparent and understand and thorough for everyone to consider, I would think. And even if it is justified, that's a pretty big bill for 2 pumpers. I know that.
The other issue.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, the other issue is there's no reserve set up for that station.
That's true. Or yeah, both of them. Both of them.
So if that station is deemed to be necessary, as the fire department says it is, you know, what are we going to do as far as setting up a reserve for that station? Should that need rebuilding, renovation, et cetera, et cetera?
That's part of our recommendation. If it was to continue, the reserves would have to be accounted for there. I took the grandkids over to Frontierland Water Park a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting there and I looked across the fence, and across the road was a Berlin satellite fire station.
Yep.
Tiny little building with 2 little doors on it for probably 2 pieces of equipment. For some reason, Berlin felt they needed a satellite station there, and therefore it's there. But it's a fraction of the size for 2 pieces of equipment of what we have over there. So even if it is justified, it's a rather large building for a couple pieces of equipment. So a lot needs to be explained there, and that was part of what BNF was commenting on in our MOU, and we still look to see that justification explanation going forward.
So Dick, definitely pertinent questions. What I'd ask is that, you know, since it came out again, or it came out in this meeting, please put that in your letter, your letter to your liaison to bring to the board, and then the board representative to bring it to me. And I'll bring it to that team, and we'll certainly work on addressing all that stuff. Totally agree. You need answers for it. We all need answers for it. Sure.
John, Colette was at the meeting when we went over that, and one of the issues that the fire department says, and I'm not saying it's true or it's not true, is the fact that because that North Station is there, it gives them close proximity and reduces our insurance rates to one zone to another. And I'm not an insurance expert, and none of us were, and Colette was going to contact our broker Dealey and confirm if that is in fact a true statement. And my comment is, trust but verify. So I don't know if I got that from Reagan.
Yes, I remember.
I don't know if Colette has ever done that, but since Dealey is our broker and the fire company says, because of that fire station, we, being all the residents of Ocean Pines, get a reduced rate. Colette was going to confirm that with Dealey. I could call Dealey, but who am I? Maybe somebody else can call them.
Well, there's two parts to that, George. Not only homeowners, but how about our own buildings?
Yeah. Right. Good point.
Proximity to this
Good point.
building and to the community center and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That I throw that out there as an item that was discussed.
And absolutely, George, it's been mentioned, and that's why I say thorough, complete justification or answer, and would include all those kind of details.
So Dick, please put all these questions down. Go to the liaison, the board representative will bring it to you. I'll bring it to my team, to the team. This way, look, the fire department's the experts on this. I've heard some of those answers like you did, George. Let's get it all codified, get the questions. We're doing that. This team is also going to have frequently asked questions, so you can put that information out there, kind of like what we just did with the police cruisers and everything. We tried to get everybody's questions and then just put it out there. So yeah, give me all that codified in your letter, and I'll have that work group work on it, and we'll follow up.
Timing's perfect. It needs to be
Sure.
In concert with what's ever happening with new construction. Okay. Those are the only items on the action list. I don't see any new ones on there. Anybody have, in closing, the last item on the agenda, is any closing comments or questions, just in general? Any?
This is Tom. I do have one.
Sure.
And we talked about capital reserves. Police body cams. We know that they are mandated. We're going to have to buy them. That's going to be new capital. What? Steve is shaking his head.
Yeah, we actually, let's see, I was going to do it. Steve, go ahead. We have some, go ahead, Steve, you handle it. He has an answer.
Yeah, so the equipment and everything was leased through a company, Axon, I believe. So we just signed the contract
Oh,
on that a while back, I think around the budget time. And Chief brought that through. It's a contract service is the way we're putting it. So it's an operating expense, just like a lease. I want to say it's like $15,000, and I think he starts implementing them maybe January timeframe, something like that, John. So
Yeah, it's right. It wasn't this year. So yeah, and the chief pointed that out to me even, I don't know if it was yesterday, the day before. We may have some savings on what we initially thought it was going to cost, the way they did it. It's not just us signing off on this. We're part of a bigger picture that signed onto this agreement. So, he was trying to find ways to offset some of the expense that we brought forward yesterday. So yeah, Steve.
So yeah, we don't have to worry about the equipment purchase for that. So that's a good thing.
Yep. Good, Steve.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
No, sir.
So with that, I think it's 11:15, 15 minutes over our 2-hour allotment, but I think we're ready to close down the meeting.
What about planning dates for future meetings?
Oh, yeah, good. That was on the agenda too. I think we were going to wait for the board to set their meeting dates first, which they'll do, I guess, on Friday.
Good. And also, please keep in mind Steve's schedule for the financials. So we try to line it all up, Dick, but good.
Hey, Dick, just to confirm, the organizational meeting is Thursday evening.
Okay. Hey,
Okay, thank you.
very good. Let's
Thank
close that. Thank you.
Thanks.
you, guys.
All right. Good day.